Hey everybody, it's Steve here at Credit Suite. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm super excited to be talking to you guys. For those who do know me, hello, nice talking to you again. For those who don't, my name is Steve Weibel. I am a presenter, partner trainer, sales representative at Credit Suite. Today we're going to dive in. I'm going to teach you how I sold millions of dollars in business credit my first year working for Credit Suite. I talked to a lot of people, and most of them think I've been here a long time, and I've really only been here 15 months. And when I came on board, I knew nothing about building business credit. I knew about business credit because I had actually built it myself through the series of companies that I had built, sold, and or closed. But I knew nothing about building business credit. And the reason I bring that up is not to brag, but to explain to you, even if you know very little or you've just started the process, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to sell tons of our suites to your prospects. So what we're going to do today is we're going to dive into how you can understand how to get the prospect quickly involved in the conversation. That's usually the most difficult part for people. And I'm going to explain what I do, how I start the interview, how I get them to take ownership of the suite without selling it to them at all. And it's more of an emotional thing. And then how I present the actual suite to prospects who have shown some interest. All right. So during the show, we're going to talk about interviewing. We're going to talk about find out, do they even have the money to pay for it? We don't want to waste our time pitching to them. We're going to explain how I get them to understand why business credit will work for them. We're going to different ways prospects can use business credit to control their cash flow or create their own credit line. And I say that in quotes because 9 out of 10 people I talk to, and I talk to a lot of people, are only interested in credit lines. That's all they want to talk about is credit lines. And I think that's the retail version or the consumer version of what people think when they talk about business credit. They're like, oh, I'm going to get a credit line, almost like a line of credit on their home. And I show them ways, if they're a true business, to create their own credit line utilizing business credit. And we'll talk about how I do that. I look at the different, we want to look at the different styles of selling. Everybody has their own way of selling. I know I like to be sold a certain way. I'm all about emotion. I want to hear the emotion of the sales rep. If somebody talks to me on a monotone level, this is the product I have to sell, I lose interest almost immediately. However, at the same time, uh, there are prospects you're going to talk to who are exactly like that. So you have to learn to bring yourself down to their level or up to their level, depending on who you are, and then try and forward pace them. And Ty dives into this real deeply on the training webinars. I think if you haven't seen them, you should go check it out. They're recorded. It's the qualification formula, the presentation formula, and the closing formula. We're not going to go into all that tonality and things of that nature. They're real important. What I'm talking about is real life. I've interviewed people. I've talked to prospects, and I've convinced them to buy from me. And I really have no issue. I sell multitude of these every single day. Everything from people who've just heard about us today, one call close, I call them, to people who've been following us for a year and just haven't taken that plunge. Okay, so we're going to dive into that. We're going to talk about the different types of credit and financing that work best for every prospect and how to figure that out. How to get the right details you need during the interview to give you the best chance of matching the customers with the best loan and business credit product. And notice I said and business credit product, and we're going to get into that a little bit. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to get somebody a loan and sell them on the business credit builder, and I'll tell you how I do that. And we're going to talk about stories. I'm a big proponent of telling stories when I sell. Nobody wants to be pitched. Nobody wants to be pitched. However, I like listening to a good story. I like hearing what happened for someone else, and then I can picture what it's going to do for me. In the real estate world, and I was a real estate agent, I owned a large printing company, I've flipped over 300 homes, I've done all kinds of things. But in the real estate world, there was one buying signal that I looked for every single time. If I was showing somebody a house, the minute they talked about where their furniture was going to go, they began telling themselves a story, they were sold. I had them. Okay, so we're going to talk about how stories sell. And then we're going to talk about following up the close. The biggest weak link in almost any organization is the customer service and the back end of it. And I don't mean that they're not being taken care of, because we certainly take care of our clients. But when you're the one that sells them, you're the one they trust. If you're the one they trust, you should at least be reaching out to them on a regular basis. And I don't mean daily, but certainly weekly or biweekly and monthly, just to see their progress. I find from a retention point of view, it increases tenfold. So we talk about that too. Most people ignore that aspect. Okay, so let's get back to who I am. Steve Weibel, again, live presenter, sales representative, partner trainer. I built a $25 million printing company when I got out of the Marine Corps. Started off, I had no idea what I was doing. I knew a little bit about that business because my father was in it, but I'd never sold anything before. So I had to learn selling the hard way, out on the streets in Philadelphia, New York, and New Jersey, going in, cold calling into business owners and convincing them to trust me with their business. After I sold that, I didn't know what to do, so I went into real estate. I didn't know anything else, so I started buying and flipping properties, and I built that into a 300 plus rentals, over 300 flips. I had 5 crews working on properties. Uh, I had tons of employees, doing really well. And the reason I tell you this is because I built business credit by accident doing that. And there's a huge benefit that affected me when the market crashed. I mean, I got killed. However, I didn't have to pay a lot of people back because the credit was in the business name. And I'll explain that story when we get near the end. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is we got to get them talking. We got to start the interview. You meet a prospect either on the street, on the phone. They've gone to your website, put a request for information. You've reached out to them. Once you've engaged them, we've got to get them talking to you. And the first thing that I do every time is, great, nice meeting you, Mary, John, whatever. Tell me a little bit about your business. Now, I do that for a reason. Nothing gets a business owner more excited than talking about their business, right? So I get them talking about their business, but what am I really doing? Besides getting them to talk, and that's important, I'm also looking for information. If they don't go down the path I'm looking for, if they start telling me, well, I'm a truck driver and over the road and I'm doing X, Y, and Z, what I'm really looking for is, 1, how long have they been doing it? 2, what type of revenue are they generating? And 3, what are the biggest problems? So if they don't specifically cross those lines, I will then dive into asking those specific questions. But I really would rather them tell me their story about their business. Once I get them talking, it's easy to let them lead me to where I need to be to close them. In other words, they'll tell you what you need to do to get them to close. They're talking to you because they're interested in business credit, which means they have a problem they need to solve, but you need to find that without them directly asking them, because I find sometimes people are a little more protective of their information. So I ask them their story. Now, the second reason I ask them their story is, and I'm gonna give you a part of the pitch. Well, Steve, I'm a real estate investor. I flipped a couple of properties and I'm looking to expand. Okay, Bob, I hear what you're saying. So it seems to me like you would love it if you had a $50,000 Home Depot credit card, if you had a vehicle that you could drive around and look at these properties that was wrapped in I Buy Houses, that was in the company name, not tied to you personally. And the fuel that you put in that vehicle was purchased on a fleet MasterCard that's in the company name, not tied to you personally. And certainly a high limit Visa or MasterCard would help you in flipping properties with your expenses and things of that nature. Is that what I'm hearing? I'm hearing something like that would work for you. Now, what's the obvious answer there? The answer is yes. No one's ever going to say, no, that wouldn't help me. Certainly a high limit Home Depot credit card wouldn't help me in my rehab business or contracting business. So I turn it around. Once I hear their story, I turn it around. I find something in the suite that applies to them. That's important. So you need to know your suite. All right. So again, we're going to get them talking. Now the question is, how do we qualify them? By getting them talking, they're going to tell you the type of revenue they're doing. That conversation I just mentioned could have went up one of a couple ways. First way, well, I'm a real estate investor. Great. How many have you done? Well, I haven't done any yet. Okay. Are you looking? Are you planning on wholesaling? What's your plans? Well, I'm working full time right now, or worse, I'm unemployed right now. That conversation needs to end. It needs to end quickly. They're not going to have the $2,500, $3,500, $4,500, whatever you guys are charging to purchase your product. So I need to say, well, listen, let me send you some information about building your business credit. You may want to take a look at that. Certainly look up any free information you can and move on from that conversation. So we need to qualify that. Or you don't want to waste your time pitching people who don't have the money nor the interest. So I start off with the questions. Tell me a little bit about your business. Find the problem. And if there's not one, sometimes the solution is something they don't even know about. Like, for example, the Home Depot is pretty obvious, but the vehicle, that always surprises people when I tell them they can get a vehicle that's tied to their EIN, not their social, and that they can wrap it in I Buy Houses. That appeals to them. I only know that because that's what I did for a living, but certainly if you look at most businesses, you can find that soft point. All right. So you want to qualify them. Once we've got them qualified, we know they can afford it. Then we go into the story, and you have to think creatively. All right, everybody wants a credit line. They already have one. If you've got a business that's doing 10, 15, 20, $25,000 a month in revenue, I'm just going to pick on a pizza shop right now. Or better yet, a trucker. If a trucker is doing $15,000 a month in revenue, okay, they've got $15,000 a month coming in every single month. And let's say their expenses, typically I find at that level, their expenses would be anywhere between $4,000 to $5,000 a month in fuel and maintenance. Okay, they're almost always paying cash. They may have a small limit credit card, fleet credit card in their name personally if they have no business credit. I've actually had clients get $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 in fleet credit that was revolving, not net 7, not net 14, but revolving. They've used that revolving credit, kept the cash in their account, paid the minimum payment, saved up enough cash, takes discipline, and buy a second truck. Used, but $30,000, $40,000 truck. Now, they can add on an employee. Now they have twice the revenue coming in. They can quickly pay down that credit line. They've effectively created a credit line for themselves, right? So this is what I mean by think creatively. You have to look at each and every business, look at it the way you would as a business owner, think about how they produce their revenue, and that's where the interview process comes in, and use that to show them how they can create their own credit line. Now, I'm not saying they won't eventually be able to get credit lines, but people with bad credit, that's their first reaction. Oh, I can't get a credit line. Well, that's okay. You can still create one. So you got to think a little creatively when we're talking about selling the suite. Okay. And I'm only talking about truckers. You can use that on any business. I'll pick on real estate agents because I was a real estate agent. Every real estate agent puts 30 to 40,000 miles in their car every year. Every real estate agent spends a ton on fuel. Every real estate agent has a cell phone that's in their personal name, which is a mistake. Every real estate agent is taking people to lunch, spending money on advertising. All of these things can be handled and controlled with business credit, every one of them. So when people say, well, I need to find prospects, if your state has as many real estate agents as every other state, you've got a huge list. Now, you want to specifically look for agents that actually can be incorporated or an LLC. Like in Florida, I'm still a real estate agent. I'm Stephen Weibel, PA. So I have business credit for Stephen Weibel, PA. But business credit would allow me, if I was still in that business, and it allows my brother, he is, to utilize the business. His personal credit, he's an 8-something score. His utilization rate is 0. Okay, and that's the things we have to talk to people about. Not only is business credit great for their business, but it actually protects their personal credit. Okay, so you're going to think creatively. You're going to probe, get these questions answered, or get the information you need, and then use that not quite as a weapon, but certainly as a way to keep them involved. All right. This is what Ty has talked about in the past. Tonality matters. You got to be excited. You got to know the prospect. Some people can't handle super excitement like myself. I've had people talk to me and say, I never want to talk to that guy again because I am super hyper. I love what I do. But in most cases, it works. I can get a prospect really excited about what this is going to do for them just through the tone of my voice. I'll raise my voice as I'm going further and further into it. And the reason I do that is not so much through training. I mean, I've certainly taken all the training, but like I said in the beginning, I know how I like to be sold. I know when I went and looked at a vehicle just recently, I ran into 9 different dealerships. I decided who I was going to buy from my 5th dealership, and it had nothing to do with the vehicle. It had to do with the person, the salesperson. Super excited. He knew, or he at least convinced me that what he had was going to work for me. And that really, really set me off. So I looked at all the other dealerships and I went back and said, look, you're my guy. Here's what I'm looking for. Within 3 days, he had it for me. I bought from him because he sold me the way I wanted to be sold. And you have to figure that out. And that goes back to the interview process. Again, get them talking. An interview, and I know I'm jumping back and forth here, but an interview is not you questioning people. It's getting them to talk to you about their problems. They have to build trust, and the best way to build trust is have them talk to you. I'm sure you've heard this before, where if you're talking to somebody and they're speaking to you and you're not saying a word, you're just listening, and nodding your head, they're going to later say what a great person you are. They don't even know why, but it's because you paid attention to them. So the only way to pay attention to them is to get them talking about their business. All right. So how do you like to be sold? So what I like to do once I've got the story is I want to lead the conversation. All right. So I start talking about financing. All right. Now, everybody I talk to doesn't want business credit. They're not interested in building business credit. They don't care about our program. They want money. Okay. That's all they want. So I have to lead that conversation. All right, you want money. What do you want it for? Tell me what your plan is. And if it's a real estate investor, and again, I'll pick on that, it's, well, I want to buy properties. Okay, let's stop right there. You certainly will be able to buy properties by getting money through your business. However, when talking about real estate investing, 9 times out of 10, matter of fact, 99 out of 100, they're going to look at your personal credit. There are hard money companies out there, but they're going to look at your personal credit. So I change the conversation and say, wait a minute, forget it. Imagine you had the money to buy the property. Now you've got to fix it up. So if you're using a hard money company who's going to lend you the money to purchase your property, and they'll even lend you the money to fix the property up with some skin in the game from you, typically what they do is they'll give you a draw on that construction money. So if we had a home that was worth $150,000, they're willing to lend you $100,000, and the purchase price is $70,000 and $30,000 in construction. They'll give you 3 $10,000 draws, 2 $15,000 draws, et cetera, et cetera. The way it works, the way it worked for me, and the way it worked for me when I owned a piece of a hard money company is we would have them front the first draw. In other words, do $10,000 in work. I would go out, inspect the property. If it was done, if what I thought was $10,000 worth of work was done, I would give them that $10,000 back and on to the second one. Now here's where it got cool. Because I had a high limit Home Depot card and I had high limit Visa and MasterCards, I would buy the supplies for the supplier who bid 30 grand, let's say, for the contractor. I would pay them with a MasterCard or a Visa. Usually got my supplies cheaper than what the supplier was bidding me, in other words, the contractor. And then I would collect that $10,000. In the meantime, I put no money out of my pocket. I've got 10 grand in my pocket, and I still have plenty of limit on my cards, and I would do it all the way through the whole process. So I could do one of two things. I could take my profit, 30 grand up front, or I can take half of it, and then when the property sells, pay it off. There's a multitude of ways, but that's the huge advantage of business credit. And that's just in real estate investing. You can do this in any business. Okay, so lead the conversation, talk about financing. And one of the things that I'll do right away in the beginning of a conversation is, okay, let's talk about your business. What are you looking for? And they tell me, okay, well, listen, there's only 3 ways to get business credit. We call them the 3 C's: cash flow, credit, or collateral. Now, through our question, we know that our cash flow is X amount of dollars. Let's say it's $8,000 a month. Typically for revenue financing, which is the easiest financing to get, you're going to need $10,000 or more. All right, so we eliminate that, and I let them eliminate it. I'll say, okay, well, cash flow, credit, or collateral. Cash flow, we're talking about $10,000 a month. From what you told me, it doesn't seem like we're there yet, right? They're owning it. Yes, you're right. Okay, let's talk about credit. How is your personal credit? And when I'm talking about personal credit, I'm looking for scores around 700, which is higher than we really need, but I throw it out there on purpose. No, I'm not quite there yet. Well, how close are you? Well, I'm more like low 6s. Okay. Let's put that aside for a second. Collateral. Do you own a commercial building? Do you have a 401k? Something that they can borrow on that requires a very low credit score, if any at all. If they're a insurance agent, you can do book of business financing. And this is where knowing what's in the suite and knowing what's in those finance cheat sheets is important, because I use this. So once I have eliminated those 3 C's and I let them eliminate it for me by saying, no, I'm not quite there, not quite there, that's okay. I have a perfect solution for you. It's called business credit. Well, I thought we were talking about business credit. No, I'm talking about credit that you can use, that's tied to your company, that you can use to control your cash flow, therefore freeing up your cash to grow your business in any way you want. That's how I lead the conversation. I don't let them lead. If they lead, you're done. It's over. All they're focused on is a credit line. All right. So that's one of the other things I do. Now, let's talk about the objections you're going to get. I love objections. One of my favorite things in the whole world. As soon as somebody objects to something, the cost, the time, which, by the way, you will hear a lot, I'm like, perfect. That means you want the product. You're just trying to find a reason not to buy the product. You guys have a huge, huge advantage over me. Huge advantage. Your wholesale cost for our business credit builder is $700 or less. And that's today, January 22nd, 2019, and it happens in case this gets recorded and played next year. But right now, that's where it's at. It's been that way for a long time. We don't dictate what you sell this for. We have no say over that. We certainly don't want you undervaluing it, but I've lost business to partners who've sold it cheaper than I can. So if I can overcome the objections, you guys have no reason not to overcome them. You can offer payment plans. You can sell it for almost half of what we sell it for. There's a million different ways. Time-wise, and I think most partners don't realize this, unless you've actually built your business credit, and unfortunately, I can't ask you to raise your hands, but I find most partners don't even bother. I think it's important that you do for two reasons. One, so you understand the customer experience. Two, to get the credit. But three, so that you know what's in the program, because you will use it 100%. I log on to our system every single day because it's always updating. We're always adding creditors. And I take anything that's new and put it in my pocket and wait for the right person to talk about it to. I know about the Home Depot. I know about the fleet credit cards. I know that WEX, you can only have so many cards. I know what's in our program. I know about Ryder truck rental. I'm constantly looking and updating my knowledge on our suite. One, because it changes. We're always adding people, and we're taking people away. As a matter of fact, I'll give you a great example. I had a partner, or a client, not a partner, get approved for credit with Pilot Flying J for $50,000. He was in the program 3 months, not even, a little over 2. He used that to buy a truck. He even wrote a letter to Ty about it. Pilot Flying J, great. They still give business credit. They're no longer in our system. They don't report anymore, so we pulled them out. It doesn't mean you can't get business credit from them, but they no longer report. Another example, and I keep my ear to the ground, is US Foods. If you know anybody who's a caterer, US Foods will give business credit and high limit. I mean, the last one I talked to, $40,000. So they don't report, they're not in our system, but it's certainly something I lay out there as a carrot. Hey, listen, as you're building your business credit and you get enough trade lines, you own a restaurant, US Foods will extend you, I've seen as high as $100,000 in credit. Again, being a little flexible, understanding their business, knowing what they're looking for. If you use that information, and you've got to know what's in the system, you've just got to know. Okay, so it's easy to overcome these objections for pricing because you guys have control. The second thing is the time. That's where I was going with this, the time. So in reality, how much time does it really take an owner to build their business credit? I mean, true time out of their day. When I went through it, and I did, maybe an hour a month, maybe an hour a month. Now, in the beginning, maybe for the credibility sections, you may put a little more time into that, which is why we give 5 phone calls in the first 5 days just to make sure they're set up credibly. But the reality of it is time should never be an issue, ever be an issue. If time is the objection that you're trying to overcome, they literally have no time. And then you can talk about hiring an assistant because all they're really doing is following the step-by-step process. It's a map. It's fairly easy. As a matter of fact, I just did a live webinar. I'm going to talk about that on YouTube. And people talk about, well, it's taken me 5 months, it's taken me 10 months, it's taken me 12 months to get here. I'm not getting in where I've run into walls. And I get that objection once in a while too, which is why I'm bringing this up. I started building my business credit, but I'm stuck. Yeah, you're stuck because you don't have the map. Everything we do is out there. We know it's out there. It's been around for a lot longer than Credit Suite has been. However, we organize it into a fashion to speed the process up. We have the advisors that will help. So take advantage of that. Use that information to your advantage. I certainly built business credit for my printing company without knowing how to do it, but it took me years. So I tell people, look, if you are interested in really doing this, are you willing to wait 5, 6, 7 years? Or are you willing to spend a little bit of money, invest in your company, and have this happen in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months and beyond? That's how I overcome the time objection. They're really the two biggest things I deal with, money and time. If they're not interested in business credit at all, I don't know why you're talking to them. Most cases they're looking for a loan. If that's the case, I'm going to tell you how to convert that as well. So let's talk about loans. I don't know how many of you are in the executive program. This is my most powerful weapon. Now, obviously, I don't have to pay to be in the executive program. I work here, but I also don't get commission on financing. However, everybody I talk to wants it. So we've set up a system here where if I send somebody into the finance team to get a loan, I don't care what type of loan it is, unsecured business financing, revenue financing, SBA loan, I don't care. It doesn't matter. There's only one of two things that are going to happen. One of two. They're going to get approved or they're going to get denied. So let's talk about it. Let's start with approved. Your prospect who you sent in as an executive programmer, you obviously want to talk to people about financing because you're getting large commissions on that. You send in your prospect for financing. Our finance team reaches out, gets them approved. You know they're approved. You're obviously going to get paid on it. So you just got them some sort of financing, whether it's credit card, cash, it doesn't really matter. Is this not the perfect time to go pitch them the business credit builder? Hey, we solved today's problem. Let's work on eliminating tomorrow's by building your business credit. So next time you need financing, you've got a solid business credit score. Or you can use the credit you're building. UBF, I love. The unsecured business financing is great. You get Visas, MasterCards, the whole deal. You can literally get the same type of credit 6 to 9 months just by going through the program. So what I say when somebody gets approved for the UBF, and I don't tell them prior to submitting them, when they come back and they're approved, I say, this is great, outstanding, you got $75,000. Now let's build your business credit. So you don't have to use all that credit on the menial things. And let's also get you Visas and MasterCards that are not tied to you personally, that you didn't personally guarantee. So that's a person who got approved. I'm going to sell in the business. They're buying the business credit builder 100% most of the time. Let's say they got turned down. Oh, man, Joe, I'm sorry you got turned down. It looked like you bounced a check and that affected the revenue financing. It looked like your revenue just isn't high enough. Whatever the reason is that not the perfect time to give them the solution to solve the problem in the future? Hey, you got turned down. Let me show you the solution to get you credit in the future. Let's not go through this again in 6 months. What's going to change in 6 months? Nothing, right? Well, let's change something. Let's help you build your business credit. Let me show you how we can get you credit. So if you're not part of the executive, which is only 90, and I'm not here to sell you the executive, I'm just talking to you as a sales rep, one sales rep to another. If you're not part of the executive, you need to be. It's the most powerful weapon. They're going to be sending me out on the road doing live events. They're also going to have me talking to business owners. The first thing I'm going to ask somebody, and I've done this, I'll be at my local pizza shop and I know the owner, and I'm going to use Joe to protect the innocent. Hey, Joe, man, your business is doing well. You ever thinking about expanding? Well, yeah, we are. I can help you with that. I can actually get you loans to expand your business. I can get you credit. Really? Yeah, here's my card. And that's it. I'll leave it at that. If they want to have a deeper conversation, set up an appointment. But every person you meet, I don't care if it's the hair salon you walk into, barbershop, whatever, small car dealership, your insurance agent, every single person you meet that you do business with needs business credit. I'd be willing to bet that 95% of the people you meet, if not more, have no idea it exists. So you got an open market, you got a product that they need, and you've got an opening question that almost always is going to generate a yes. Do you want any money? No, I don't want your dirty money. Keep it away from me. So there's no reason you shouldn't be in the executive program for $99 a month. I close way more sales from that than anything else. So you don't have to call me, call your rep, or do it online. You can do it right through your program. If you click on client dashboard, it'll say you're ready to upgrade the executive. Go ahead and do that. If you're in it, then you have the tool. And if you're not using it, use it. It works fantastically. All right, enough of that. There's my quote unquote sales pitch. All right, know thy suite. I touched base on this. You've got to understand what's in the program. If you're not logging into your suite every day, and I talk to a lot of partners who don't, they ask me questions and I go, man, if you'd been in there, you would have known. Somebody's asking me a question. They have personal collateral like a home in their name and not in the business name. That's a lending question. If they have personal collateral like a home in their name, you're talking about if they're an investor, then you're looking at a personal loan. Has nothing to do with business. All right, so just keep that in mind. When you're borrowing money on properties, and this is coming from a real estate agent and investor, you are stuck in a box. You're stuck in the Fannie Freddie box, okay? FHA, Fannie Freddie. Obviously, it's not going to be FHA as an investor, but you're stuck in that box. So you're limited to what their requirements are. But that's a great question because we want to understand their business and yours. So you've got to know what's in your suite. You can't be the solution to their problem if you don't understand your own solution. You've got to log in. I said I log in every single day. If you go to my desktop, and if you ever in Land O'Lakes, Florida, stop by, I'll show you. The suite is open at all times. I'm constantly refreshing it and updating it because we're always adding new things. That is a tool that you can use to sell somebody. You've got to provide a solution, but you've got to know what the solution is. Okay, so log into your system, go through the program. If you're not interested in going through the program, at least know what's in there. Okay. Second part, you've got to understand their business. Hence the original slide, get them talking. You've got to understand what they need in their business. I'll tell you, I run into one type of business that's difficult for me to sell. It's I have an online Amazon business, or I have an online whatever business. They're difficult because their expense is basically their website, and their marketing, their Facebook ads. So I push that. I push that they can get a MasterCard, Visa through the program, but there's not a whole lot else. I'll talk about computers because Dell and Apple will give you credit, but how many are they really buying? That's the one time I run into some issues. But other than that, every other business I talk to, there's something in our suite that will solve them. And it's more than one something. Typically, it's 3, 4, 5 somethings. Uh, Even an insurance agent, you think, what can we get them? Well, they tend to generate a lot of paper. Even though everything's online, they still generate paper. They can be buying their paper from Staples, or they're buying any office supplies from Staples or Office Depot or even Quill. So you've got to understand their business, and you're only going to get that by getting them talking. And then you've got to understand yours. And I mean, really understand it. You've got to be able to pull that memory from the back of your head and use that as a weapon. I hate saying that, but that's really what it is. It's a war. You win or they win. So that's what I do. I'm able to convince people that our suite is the solution to any of their problems. And every business has problems. Every business has cash flow problems. Every business has credit problems. They all have it. We have the solution. All right. So on that, we're going to talk about stories. Have you built business credit? Show them. I'm going to tell you a little bit of my story, just a little bit. Use this. And actually, I'm going to say that at some point in this. Use my story if you don't have one. If you have one on your own, for those of you who have built business credit or have some semblance of it, and you have an American Express in your pocket with the company name, you have a Home Depot card, whatever you have, you need to bring that out and show them. Okay, because that's powerful. I've seen our partners do that where they lay 5 credit cards on the table and say, look at this. This is all business credit. This is what I got building my business credit. You want to talk about a closing statement? There's your closing statement. I tell my story, and I tell 2 different ones. I have my printing company that I built up to 25 million, had no idea what business credit was getting it. I was getting net 30 accounts. I actually got a company car in the company name, but I was signing for everything else personally. I mean, everything. I was signing for everything personally. I had sales reps that I was signing for their cars. I had no idea. Built a successful company, but I had no idea. My personal credit utilization was so high that doing those kind of numbers, I couldn't buy a house because my credit score was so low, just because my utilization was high. My wife was furious. So I had to cut down my utilization at the office just to make sure I could get my score back up to where it belonged to get a property. You imagine, I was signing for $3 million printing presses, bindery equipment, paper, you name it. But I had no real credit. It was all personal. That was one. My second one, when I sold the company and I decided to go into real estate, my first purchase was 35 properties. I used all my own cash. It was like a lot of 35 properties. That's not important. But I really wanted to do it differently this time. So it took me a long time because I didn't have the roadmap, but I was able to build up well into 6 figures with Home Depot, well into 6 figures combined for my Visas, MasterCard, American Express. My F-250, which is what I drove, was brand new, $50,000, wrapped with iBuyhouses, front, back, and tail, or 2 sides and tail. All of that was in the company name. None of it was tied to me, okay? Including 4 other small vehicles that my crew were using. When I say small vehicles, I had the F-250, they all had F-150s. None of them tied to me personally, all of them wrapped with iBuyhouses. All of this using business credit that I built by accident. I didn't plan it. It took me a long time. It took a lot of cash flow. So I built this credit up, doing really well. I don't have to tell you what happened in 2008. 2008 probably wouldn't have ruined me if it hadn't been for my lack of knowledge of government contracts. Government contracts are one-way contracts. If you have a contract with the government, you're obligated. They're not. They can change the terms anytime. I had a ton of Section 8 housing. If anybody's familiar with real estate investing, that's where the government pays you rent for low-income clients. Well, I was getting between $800 and $1,200 per home, and I had lots of them. And then when the economy crashed, they dropped that down as low as $350 to $400, which is fine. Except my average mortgage on each one was about $550. So I went from making a ton of money to losing $100,000 a month. It was out of control. So I ended up, needless to say, I ended up losing or getting rid of those houses. I made deals with banks, no real foreclosures on my record. But really, what the key was I didn't pay Home Depot. I didn't pay for any of the vehicles. They all got, well, except one. One was paid off, repossessed. Basically, the business went out of business, and I had to relocate to Florida because that was devastating. But my credit score didn't get affected. Imagine that my credit score did not get affected. Tell that story to somebody who's a real estate investor who lived through '08. That's what business credit can do. That's why I tell that story. And that's just one. I could tell stories of other clients I have. I told you guys a story about the guy with the $50,000 credit line with Pilot Flying J, how he bought another truck. There's tons of those. Christine, if she's in here, hi Christine. If not, has great stories. You got to use stories. At least that's me. That's my way of selling. It works for me. And I did really well my first year. I outsold everybody in this company. And I'm not telling you that because I'm bragging. That's who I am. I'm a salesperson. But this is what I use. When Ty gave me the opportunity to do this today, I was super excited because I've been through all the training. All the training that you've seen, I went through. I went through the partner training. I did the part. Weekly, I watch all those coaching webinars. I do it because I like to learn. But Ty hasn't had to sell anything, the suites directly in a long time. He's the CEO. He's got a lot he's doing. So I wanted to tell you what I'm dealing with today and how it can work for you. Okay. Let's see. Be flexible. You have a huge advantage. I broke into this. You guys have a huge advantage. I can't stand when I have a partner, and there's lots of you guys out there. I have partners that are selling 50 in under a year. I have one partner that's averaging about 20 a month, and then I have other partners that sell one every 7 months, and I can't understand it. And I ask them, what's happening? Well, I'm talking to people and they can't really afford that $34.97 I'm charging. Wait a minute. We advertise our price at $29.97. If you look on our website, there it is, plain as day. We do that for a reason. You have the flexibility to sell it at any price you want. That doesn't mean you have to go for the home run. Sometimes it's better off selling it for $2,100, $1,997. You have the opportunity to create cash flow with these people. If they want it, remember, we're back to they want it. You've told the story. They get it. Yeah, I can see how this helps me. If it's pricing and you lose, you've got to rethink your approach. Okay, you can take payments. Most of you may or may not know this, but when you buy an enrollment from us, there's a 2-pay option. We don't advertise it, but there is. Okay, so you take a $700 enrollment, you break that into 2-pay, that's $350 per. So if they're willing to pay you $400 or $500 down, which I think is the winning numbers, what I hear, take it. Take it. Get the second payment, you're in the clear, you're on the free ride. Now the rest of your payments are all cash flow in your pocket. And keep in mind that if they don't pay you, you can always contact your rep and they can cut them off. Okay, they can turn them right back on again once they pay you. Just keep that in the back of your mind. The point is that you have a huge advantage. You can be as flexible as you need to be. All right, so don't let pricing. I should never hear from a partner, hey, pricing is my issue. Well, man, come sit in my seat, because guess what? The only discount I can offer is $24.97 when we do a webinar. I'm stuck at $29.97. And by the way, we're thinking about raising the price. Okay. So now if I sold anybody for any less than that, you got a special deal, and don't say anything. So my point is, you guys have a huge advantage. I'll never understand why I outsell 99% of the partners. And I get it. Ty generates leads, but Ty teaches you how to generate leads exactly the same way. And I'm not going to name names, but we have a partner that literally has copied what we do, and he is killing it. He literally copied us. I mean, does YouTube live, does webinars, does live presentations. He followed exactly what Ty did. And every other day I see his name in the sales bucket, sold more, sold more, sold more. So I don't know what he's making, don't care, good for him, but he followed it. So if you're not, if it's finances, then go with the free stuff, do the YouTube lives. All right, you should know, keep in mind, you're the expert. 99% of the people, or 95% of the people out there have no idea what business credit is. No idea. You could sit with the suite open in front of you and do a webinar and go through it. I mean, obviously you don't want to share that with your potential prospects, but you can create a different PowerPoint slide, which we have tons in the back office. My point is, there's no reason why you shouldn't sell at least 1 or 2 of these every single month, especially if you're part of the executive. All right, where are we at? We're only 40 minutes into this. All right, Service after the sale, make sure they engage. This is another issue I run into, where a partner will sell a business credit builder. They'll get them into the system, which makes a lot of sense. That we take over from there, that's great. However, they never reach out to their prospect again. I think that's a mistake, especially if you're taking monthly payments. If you don't follow up with that client, make sure they're happy. Now, we're certainly doing everything in our power, and we're really good at it. Our back end is amazing, but you still are the person they trust. You're the one that convinced them to give you their credit card, their check, their cash, however they paid you. You need to follow up with them. I typically like to follow up 2 weeks, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. At that point, they should be well on their way. And I'll certainly follow up with them again. I'll ask them, hey, do you mind if I reach out to you in a couple of weeks or a month, see how you're doing? But if you don't follow up in the first couple of weeks and you have a payment plan, you're not getting paid. All right. Now, this has nothing to do with sales, but it has to do with getting paid. And now I'm all about, in sales, we're all about getting paid, right? Now, listen, I'm seeing questions. I'm seeing where you can put questions. So certainly put any question you have. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. I want to go back to the different styles. Again, I'm super hyper. Ty, as you guys know, is super hyper, but sometimes you have to take it down a level. Sometimes you have to talk about information only and get this tonality. And here's what's going to happen, Mr. Prospect, in step 1 and step 2 and step 3. But as you're doing that, you want to slightly increase your voice as you go along. I find that gets them reacting. And sometimes I'll stop in the middle. My favorite, and actually I didn't do a slide for this, guys. Now I'm kind of stopping here because there's a lot of other things I want to talk about. One of my favorite things to do, and one of my favorite books, and you guys should look it up. Look up a book called Shut Up and Sell. Now, that's hard for me. I love to talk, but it was probably the best sales book I ever read. I will be in the middle of a conversation. I'll pitch the person that I'm talking to, and then I'll stop and get really, really, really low and quiet. I won't say a word. And the reasoning is, now obviously I can't do it here because I'm talking to you. It's a one-way conversation. But the first person to say something, anything, usually loses. So I'll get real quiet. Let them ask me something. Let them say, oh, interesting. I don't care what it is. Let them say something. Don't talk your way through a sale. We have people in our building that will do that. We'll talk the way right through it, all the way to the end. Never let the client engage. The key is you got to keep the client engaged. Now, let's talk about closing. You've gone through the pitch. They're interested. You're flexible. Now you hit this. You hear this. Well, I can't quite afford it yet. I'm interested in signing up in 2 weeks. Outstanding. All right. So how do you want to pay for that? You want to do a check or are you going to do a credit card? If they're not local and they say credit card, great. Would you like to give me your information now? I can just order one and get you engaged immediately. That's the first thing I'll ask. Or if it's a check, now I don't deal with that. We don't do that here. But if I was out on the road, I would say, no problem. Write me a post-dated check. I'll keep my pocket. I'll call you before I deposit it. Let's get you set up. You're committed. Let's finish that commitment. So that's the first thing I'll do. The second thing, and I don't use this very often, and I don't know if you guys are using it or not. I don't talk about the money back guarantee unless I absolutely have to. I mean, absolutely have to. If you have to use that, use it. I don't recommend it. You have a lot of profit yield, a lot of profit spread in this between what it costs you and what it sells. And if you do ask for a refund after 30 days on enrollment, we generally will give it back to you. But I save that that's like the last thing in my pocket. You got to keep some tools in your pocket, and that's the last one I use. So closing them is usually pretty easy, especially if it's their idea. What I mean by that is, so what do you think? Do you think having a high limit Home Depot would work for you? Yes. Do you think having a vehicle that you can drive around that's not in your name would help you? Yes. Do you feel like building business credit would protect your personal credit score, your family, and your investment? Yes. Well, they've just given you all the yeses. That's it. Okay, great. When did you want to get started? So you have to close. That's the other issue I find is that people are afraid to ask for the order. I'm not afraid to ask for the order, ever. Our job, your job, what we're here for is to sell them something. Is to help them, actually. And you can't do that if you don't ask them. So that's the other weakness I hear. I hear people pitch it and never actually ask for the order. So make sure that's part of your repertoire. You make sure that's the last thing you say is ask for the order, even if it's a future order. If it's not today, great. When would you like to get started? Or would you like to get started? Well, I'm not quite ready yet. Great. Tell me when you would be. I'm seeing a question, other questions. What do they have personal? Blah blah blah. Bear with me, guys. I'm just reading the questions. Collateral. Do you have script or PowerPoint that you find works best for you? Yes, in your office, you have scripts. If you have the, ironically, if you have the executive that allows you to add sales reps, and there are sales scripts in there, but there are certainly scripts that we have. And I walked around for the first month with a script in my hand. And by the way, try that. It works. It's amazing how you can memorize it. And they're in the office. Go into your part. Matter of fact, contact Partner Success. They'll tell you right where it's at. I should know it off the top of my head, but I'm not really involved in the partner side of it other than selling them and servicing them. But yes, I believe in a script. I'm a little off script now because that's who I am as a person, but certainly scripts will help you get through most objections because all of our scripts have all the objections in there. And like I said, Ty talked about this in the presenting and closing formula. There are 3 1-hour presentations in your back office under partner training. If you go back, I think it's about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, you'll see the qualification formula, the presentation formula, and the closing formula. I recommend everybody do that. When I sign a new partner on, I make sure they go through the partner training. Again, same thing I went through. When I'm finished with that, I send them to those 3 webinars. Okay, that's going to be a little more structured, give you a little more detailed information than what I'm giving you here today. But today was really about explaining what I do, and the numbers are there. I mean, I did do really well with this. I can pick up the phone and sell 3 today if I wasn't doing a webinar. So scripts are important. I started off with those scripts. Now I've got it down pretty well where I just used the formula that I just gave you guys, which is, the interview process, being flexible, convincing them to take emotional ownership. And that's the key. To me, everything else doesn't matter. That's the key. If you can get them to take emotional ownership of the suite, now they don't know they're taking ownership of the suite. What they're really taking ownership of is, man, that vehicle would be great. I could add more crews for construction. I have too many jobs and not enough vehicles. Let's say they're in the lawn care business. If you can convince them to think like that, most of the job's done for you. That's why that interview is so important. That's why knowing their business and knowing your suite is so important. If you can tie them all together, you can't lose. You can't lose. Anybody have any other questions while I kind of review what we're talking about? Okay, so we talked about how to start the interviews. We talked about find out how they have the money. That's key. We talked about different ways that prospects can use business credit. Don't be stuck on credit lines. You want to make sure that if you understand their business and you understand the suite, how you can show them how they can control their cash flow using the suite. We talked about closing it. We talked about discovering their biggest problems. We talked about the executive. Again, I can't emphasize this anymore. I don't get commission on what we're talking about here, guys, but I'm telling you that is my number 1 tool. It is the most powerful thing that I use. It gives you an opportunity to speak to them twice, no matter what. Take advantage of it. What else there is? I know. When you're talking to your clients and you get them started, one of the things, they're going to be real excited. They're going to be super excited. And if you've sold any suites, you know this. One of the things that I do that not everybody else does is I help them get logged in. I enter them into the back office, just like you guys do. They get their welcome, set your password, and I call them back. I wait 10, 15 minutes and say, hey, did you get welcome, set your password? Oh, you haven't? Take a look for it. It might be in your spam. Go ahead and set your password. And I walk them through the suite. I show them everything, including the end. Show them everything. I'm doing 2 things here. One, keeping that level of excitement high, right? And the second thing is I'm anchoring expectations. In other words, I want them to know it's going to take X amount of time to go through X amount. Now, I'm not sure. I've never done a coaching webinar, but it's telling me I only have 45 seconds left. So this may cut me off, guys. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at Stephen@CreditSuite. It's Stephen, STEPHEN @CreditSuite.com. I'd be happy to answer any other questions. I apologize. I think I started this about 8 minutes early just to make sure I know how to use it. So I run out of time a little soon. I really appreciate you being there. You guys are great. Anything I can do to help, feel free to reach out to me. All right. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.